Welcome back to At One Insight World, your go-to channel for geopolitics insights. Today, we're diving into Dark Territory by Fred Kaplan, a riveting journey into the hidden world of cyber warfare, published in 2016. In 2025, as cyber attacks shape conflict from the Middle East to global superpowers, this book is a critical guide to understanding the digital battlefield. Fred Kaplan, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and national security expert, pulls back the curtain on how cyber warfare began, how it's rewriting the rules of power, and what it means for regions like Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. In this audiobook summary, we'll explore the origins of cyber warfare, its explosive impact on the Middle East, and the high stakes for our digital future. So, let's step onto this invisible battlefield together and uncover the forces shaping our world. Pause twos to understand cyber warfare. We need to go back to its roots. Kaplan's Dark Territory gets its name from a chilling phrase coined by former U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, who warned in 2012 that a cyber attack could be America's next Pearl Harbor. The story begins in the 1980s, during the tense days of the Cold War, when the U.S. military first saw computers not just as tools for calculations, but as potential weapons. It all started with a wake-up call in 1983, during a U.S. war game called Proud Prophet. This exercise simulated a conflict with the Soviet Union, and the results were sobering. Both sides escalated to nuclear war, with devastating consequences. What caught the attention of Pentagon planners wasn't just the nuclear outcome, but the role of early computer networks in coordinating military operations. A single breach in these networks could disrupt an enemy's ability to communicate, track forces, or launch missiles. This realization sparked a revolution in military thinking. Cyberspace could be a new domain of warfare, alongside land, sea, air, and space. Pause twos, the U.S. didn't waste time. By the mid-1980s, the Pentagon was investing in information warfare, a term Kaplan uses to describe early efforts to weaponize computers. One of the first milestones was a 1984 experiment called Able Archer, where NATO tested how computer networks could coordinate a rapid response to a Soviet invasion. The exercise revealed vulnerabilities. If the Soviets hacked these networks, they could paralyze NATO's command structure. This led to the development of offensive cyber tools, like viruses designed to disable enemy radar or jam communications. Kaplan details how the National Security Agency, NSA, took the lead, creating programs to infiltrate Soviet systems. For example, in 1986, the NSA discovered a Soviet attempt to hack U.S. military networks, prompting a counteroffensive that planted false data in Soviet computers, a tactic known as a honey trap. These early efforts showed the power of cyber warfare. It was silent, invisible, and could strike without warning. Pause twos, but the U.S. wasn't alone in this race. Kaplan explains that adversaries like China and Russia were quick to catch up. In China, the People's Liberation Army, PLA, began studying U.S. cyber strategies in the 1990s, inspired by America's use of precision-guided weapons in the 1991 Gulf War. The Gulf War, which we touched on in Prisoners of Geography for its Middle East implications, was a turning point. It showed how technology could dominate modern warfare. China realized that hacking could level the playing field against a stronger U.S. military. By the late 1990s, Chinese hackers, often state-sponsored, were targeting U.S. defense contractors, stealing designs for weapons like the Patriot missile. Russia, meanwhile, focused on disrupting political systems. Kaplan recounts how Russian hackers in the 1990s targeted U.S. think tanks, planting disinformation to sow confusion. These early moves set the stage for the cyber conflicts we see in 2025, from election meddling to infrastructure attacks. Pause twos. What makes cyber warfare unique, Kaplan argues, is its accessibility. Unlike nuclear weapons, which require massive resources, cyber tools are relatively cheap and can be developed by small teams. This democratization of power means that even smaller players, like North Korea or Iran, can challenge superpowers. Kaplan cites the 1988 Morris worm, one of the first major internet viruses, which was created by a single graduate student and accidentally crashed thousands of computers worldwide. This incident showed how a lone actor could cause chaos, a lesson that resonates today. In 2025, as we'll see, nations like Iran are using this low-cost, high-impact approach to target rivals in the Middle East, a region where cyber warfare is reshaping geopolitics. Pause twos. Now let's zoom into the Middle East, a region we've explored extensively on at One Insight World. In Dark Territory, Kaplan shows how cyber warfare has become a critical weapon in this volatile region, particularly for Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Let's start with Iran, a country we've discussed as a geopolitical fortress in Prisoners of Geography, thanks to its Zagros Mountains. But in cyberspace, Iran's reach extends far beyond its borders. Kaplan highlights a pivotal moment in 2012 when Iran allegedly launched the Shamoon virus against Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil company. The attack wiped data from 30,000 computers, disrupted oil production, and sent shockwaves through the global energy market. Kaplan explains that Shamoon was Iran's retaliation for Western sanctions on its nuclear program, a topic we've covered in our discussions of Iran-US tensions. The attack showed Iran's ability to strike at the heart of its rivals' economies without firing a single bullet. Pause twos, fast forward to 2025, and Iran's cyber capabilities have only grown more sophisticated. A 2024 CrowdStrike report, widely discussed on X, details how Iran has targeted Israeli infrastructure with ransomware attacks, aiming to disrupt its tech-driven economy. These attacks often involve proxies like Hezbollah, which operates cyber cells in Lebanon to target Israeli military communications. Kaplan's book doesn't cover 2025, but his analysis of Iran's early cyber strategy, using low-cost, deniable attacks to project power, still holds. For example, a January 2025 Jerusalem Post article reports that Iran-backed hackers attempted to breach Israel's power grid, echoing the Shamoon attack's disruptive intent. Iran's cyber strategy aligns with its broader geopolitical goals: weaken U.S. allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia, distract the U.S. with regional conflicts, and assert dominance in the Middle East, a dynamic we explored in 100-Year Marathon with China's support for Iran. Pause twos. Israel, by contrast, is a cyber juggernaut. Kaplan devotes significant attention to Israel's Unit 8200, an elite cyber intelligence unit within the Israel Defense Forces. This unit, often compared to the NSA, has been a pioneer in offensive cyber operations. The most famous example, detailed in Dark Territory, is Stuxnet, a worm developed by Israel and the U.S. in 2010 to sabotage Iran's nuclear centrifuges. Stuxnet was a landmark in cyber warfare. It was the first known cyber attack to cause physical destruction, slowing Iran's nuclear program by damaging equipment. Kaplan explains how Stuxnet worked by exploiting vulnerabilities in Iran's industrial control systems, spinning centrifuges out of control while displaying false data to operators. This operation showed the world that cyberspace could be as destructive as a missile strike. Pause twos. In 2025, Israel's cyber dominance remains unmatched in the region. A Jerusalem Post article from February 2025 notes that Unit 8200 disrupted Hezbollah's communications network in Lebanon, weakening its ability to coordinate attacks. This builds on Kaplan's point that Israel uses cyber warfare to counter asymmetric threats from non-state actors like Hezbollah. But Kaplan also warns that Israel's tech-heavy economy and military, including systems like the Iron Dome, are vulnerable to cyber attacks. In our Battlefield Cyber video, we discussed how a single breach could disrupt Israel's financial sector or missile defenses. Iran's growing capabilities, combined with its alliances with Russia and China, make this a real threat in 2025. Israel's challenge is to maintain its cyber edge while fortifying its defenses against increasingly sophisticated foes. Pause twos. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, is a prime target in this digital battlefield. Kaplan notes that its oil wealth and strategic importance make it a magnet for cyber attacks. The 2012 Shamoon attack was a wake-up call, but Saudi Arabia faced similar assaults in 2017 also attributed to Iran. These attacks targeted energy infrastructure, aiming to cripple the kingdom's economy. In 2025, as Saudi Arabia deepens ties with China through the Belt and Road Initiative, a topic we covered in 100-Year Marathon, its cyber vulnerabilities are growing. A 2024 size report highlights that Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 projects, like the NEOM Smart City, rely heavily on Chinese technology, raising concerns about potential backdoors for espionage. Kaplan's insight is that cyber warfare isn't just about direct attacks. It's about exploiting technological dependencies to gain leverage. For Saudi Arabia, balancing modernization with cybersecurity is a high-stakes challenge in 2025. Pause twos. Let's broaden our lens to the global stage. Kaplan argues in Dark Territory that cyber warfare has fundamentally changed the nature of power. Unlike traditional warfare, which requires massive resources like armies or navies, cyber weapons are cheap, anonymous, and borderless. This levels the playing field, allowing smaller nations or even non-state actors to challenge superpowers. Kaplan illustrates this with the 1988 Morris worm, created by a single graduate student, which accidentally crashed thousands of computers worldwide. This incident showed how a lone actor could wreak havoc, a lesson that resonates in 2025 with state-sponsored hackers and rogue groups. Pause twos. Russia is a prime example of this new dynamic. Kaplan details how Russia used cyber attacks to interfere in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, hacking Democratic Party servers and leaking emails to sow discord. These tactics, known as hybrid warfare, combined cyber operations with disinformation campaigns. By 2025, Russia's cyber strategy has evolved. Ex-posts from security analysts, like those from its size in January 2025, highlight Russia's ongoing attacks on Ukraine's power grid, disrupting electricity and water supplies. Kaplan's analysis helps us understand Russia's approach. Use cyberspace to destabilize adversaries without direct military confrontation. This mirrors Iran's strategy in the Middle East, where cyber attacks amplify its influence without risking open war. Pause twos. China, meanwhile, has mastered cyber espionage. Kaplan notes that China's People's Liberation Army began targeting U.S. defense contractors in the 1990s, stealing designs for weapons like the F-35 fighter jet. We discussed this in 100-Year Marathon, where China's long-term strategy to overtake the U.S. relies on technological theft. In 2025, this continues unabated. A 2024 CrowdStrike report reveals that Chinese hackers targeted U.S. tech firms, stealing AI and quantum computing research. China's Belt and Road Initiative, which includes tech partnerships in the Middle East, also raises concerns about espionage. For example, a 2025 Foreign Affairs article warns that Chinese-built 5G networks in countries like Saudi Arabia could enable surveillance. Kaplan's point is that cyber warfare isn't just about destruction. It's about gaining strategic advantages through information and control. Pause twos. Smaller players like North Korea also wield outsized influence in cyberspace. Kaplan cites the 2014 Sony Pictures hack, where North Korean hackers leaked sensitive data to protest a film mocking their leader. This attack showed how even a resource-poor nation could target global corporations. In 2025, North Korea's cyber operations have grown bolder. A 2024 FireEye report notes that North Korean hackers stole $400 million in cryptocurrency to fund their regime, bypassing sanctions. These attacks highlight Kaplan's argument. Cyberspace empowers underdogs to punch above their weight, creating a volatile global landscape. Pause twos. Kaplan also explores the role of non-state actors. Terrorist groups like ISIS have used cyberspace to recruit fighters and spread propaganda, as seen in their 2015 social media campaigns. In the Middle East, Hezbollah and other Iran-backed groups have adopted similar tactics, using encrypted apps to coordinate attacks. A 2025 ex-post from its CFR notes that Hezbollah's cyber cells, trained by Iran, targeted Israeli banks with phishing scams. Kaplan warns that these groups, combined with state actors, make cyberspace a chaotic battlefield where attribution is difficult and retaliation is risky. Pause 2s. What does the future hold for cyber warfare? Kaplan warns in Dark Territory that we're in a new Cold War, where cyber weapons are as critical as nuclear ones. In 2025, this warning feels urgent. A Foreign Affairs article from March 2025 suggests that a major cyber attack could escalate into a real-world conflict, like a US-Iran standoff in the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point we explored in Prisoners of Geography. Imagine a scenario where Iran hacks US naval systems, disrupting operations in the Persian Gulf. Kaplan argues that such an attack could trigger a broader war, especially if attribution is unclear. This risk is heightened in the Middle East, where tensions between Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia are already high. Pause 2s. Kaplan proposes solutions to mitigate these risks. First, nations must invest in cyber defenses, like firewalls and intrusion detection systems. Israel, for example, has built a robust cyber shield, but a 2025 size report warns that even advanced systems can be breached. Second, Kaplan calls for international cooperation, like NATO's cyber defense pacts, to share intelligence and deter attacks. In the Middle East, this could mean US-led partnerships with Israel and Saudi Arabia to counter Iran's cyber threat. Finally, Kaplan urges global rules for cyberspace, similar to arms control treaties, to prevent escalation. However, in 2025, such agreements seem distant, with China and Russia resisting regulation, as noted in a recent Atlantic Council post on X. Pause 2s. In the Middle East, the stakes are particularly high. Iran's growing cyber capabilities could tip regional power dynamics, especially if it targets critical infrastructure like Saudi Arabia's oil facilities or Israel's Iron Dome. Kaplan's analysis suggests that Israel and Saudi Arabia must prioritize cyber resilience, investing in AI-driven defenses and training programs. Meanwhile, Iran's alliances with Russia and China, as we discussed in 100-Year Marathon, amplify its cyber threat. A 2025 Jerusalem Post report notes that Chinese tech supply to Iran has enhanced its hacking tools, raising fears of coordinated attacks. Kaplan's warning is clear. The Middle East is a cyber powder keg, and one spark could ignite a broader conflict. Pause 2s. Globally, the challenge is to outpace authoritarian regimes in the cyber race. Kaplan argues that democracies, with their open systems, are both advantaged and vulnerable. The US and Israel can innovate rapidly, but their reliance on interconnected networks makes them targets. In contrast, authoritarian states like China and Iran control their internet, limiting vulnerabilities but stifling innovation. A 2025 Foreign Affairs article echoes this, noting that the US must balance security with openness to maintain its cyber edge. The question is, can democracies adapt fast enough to win this digital Cold War? Pause 2s, let's wrap up. Dark Territory by Fred Kaplan is a wake-up call about the invisible war shaping our world. From Iran's devastating Shamoon attack on Saudi Arabia to Israel's groundbreaking Stuxnet operation and China's relentless espionage, cyber warfare is redefining geopolitics. In the Middle East, where tensions run high, this digital battlefield is only growing more dangerous. Thanks for joining us on At One Insight World for this audiobook summary. If this opened your eyes, grab a copy of Dark Territory to dive deeper into the cyber age. What do you think? How can nations stay safe in this chaotic digital landscape? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more geopolitics insights. Stay curious. Pause 2s.